On this week's Ranked and Reviewed, we're continuing our Batman Ranked and Reviewed series with The Dark Knight Rises. Hello everyone and welcome to Ranked and Reviewed, where we are doing the Batman movies. We have done all the Batman movies leading up to The Dark Knight Rises so far. So that includes Batman 1989, is it, Alan?
Yes.
Yes. Batman Returns, Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, Batman Begins, The Dark Knight. We're up to The Dark Knight Rises, but we have also done The Batman. So we officially only have 2 more movies to go, and that includes the Lego Batman movie and Batman vs. Superman. So, as always, I'm your host, Tomye West, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Alannis Batman. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, like, and share. And, leave a comment, because it makes you feel good, which makes us feel good. Right, Alan?
Yes, but would probably, hopefully, as good as it made Bane feel snapping Batman over his knee. Because that looked like fun. I'd just like to do that to Christian Bale.
Yeah.
That's what I want you to say.
You burned my back! You burned my back!
Where is it?
All right, so if you haven't caught up to date, make sure you go back and review the older episodes of this. We've done all the Batman movies. It's been a wild ride. We've gotten very far into this, haven't we, Alan?
Yes, we have. We are persistent with our love of reviewing the Caped Crusader.
We definitely are. We definitely are. Which brings us to our review of The Dark Knight Rises. Now, before we get into our thoughts, like usual, we're going to go straight into the overview of this movie. Now, that is, The Dark Knight Rises was released 2012, rated PG-13, goes through 2 hours and 44 minutes, so that's its runtime. It gets an 8.4 out of 10 on IMDb as a rating, which is very high. And the budget for this movie was $250 million. Its opening weekend, it made $160 million in US and Canada alone. And then all up gross worldwide, it made $1 billion, a bit over $1 billion. This also was directed by, obviously, Christopher Nolan, written by Jonathan Nolan and Christopher Nolan and David S. Goyer. Stars Christian Bale, Tom Hardy, Anne Hathaway, Gary Oldman, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Morgan Freeman, Michael Caine, and a bunch of other actors and actresses. So, with that, we're going to get straight into our thoughts. And as always, I'm going to let Alannis take the table.
It was long. I think I haven't seen this movie in ages, and I think I liked it a little bit more, but I think thinking about that, a decent part of why I enjoyed it more was because I broke it up. I didn't watch it in one sitting like in a cinema. Because I only saw this at the cinemas, and I went, well, that was a long movie. And then I haven't seen it since. So, yeah, it was more enjoyable than I remember, but also still very long. Yeah. Christian Bale's still a terrible Batman, and it's a slope. His voice as Batman just gets worse and worse each movie. It's like, dude, I can't understand you. Some parts when him and Bane were talking, and I had to put on the closed captions because I was like, what the fuck are these two saying? It's like, what?
So what else? Dive deep into it, Alan, before I get into my thoughts.
Anne Hathaway was a better Catwoman than I remember. I think she's probably my least favorite Catwoman though. Like, but it has its good grace as well. Like, it has some really cool action scenes. It has like Michael Caine and Gary Oldman are just mint. Like they. I don't think there's been a bad Commissioner Gordon or Alfred casting, and they often carry the movies. I think like Michael Caine was just stole the show in some scenes. I think, at least from an acting point of view. But I don't know exactly what it was outside of the length that it lacked, but it lacked something that the second one and even the first one kind of had, that made it that little bit more oomph.
I can totally answer some of these. I can totally answer some of these questions for you, and that is that the things that it lacked were sensible storytelling. That's what it lacked, man. Was the groundedness that the other two had, the level of what the villains were capable of, the overall plot, everything in this movie was much further down the totem pole than the previous two movies in this, in my opinion, in this Nolan trilogy. I think that this movie, as you said, was too long. I think that Bane has very little motive, but seems to have these stupid ideas, just dumb ideas. But the ending was very unsatisfying. It was very silly, like this nuclear bomb getting taken out to the ocean, and then fucking Bruce Wayne going missing, and then sitting at the table and winking at Michael Caine like, "There you go," you know what I mean? Like, there was just so much to this movie that felt like not a Nolan Batman movie. You know what I mean? This kind of felt like Nolan was there, but on vacation, and someone else was doing a lot of the work. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Do you agree?
Yes. I think that now that you mention it, it kind of bugs me a little more that they kind of went down that fantastic road, but they also tried to keep grounded. Like, Bane as a character in the comics, at least to my knowledge, is a super roided up, well, not thug, but bad guy. He's on this fantasy drug that makes him super strong. They didn't give that to him, and they changed the character almost completely to fit into League of Shadows. But as you said, it's still got like that. It's got that fantastic comic book story to it, whilst trying to go, no, we're going to keep this close to real world. Right?
The whole thing about Christian Bale getting out of the pit, having his back broken, having like his leg broken, he hasn't been Batman for 8 years, and just this is the one time I will say there was some really silly gadgets used. You know what I mean? There's just a lot in this movie that I think is completely weird and strange. Like, who the fuck wouldn't put it together after 8 years of no Batman and no Bruce Wayne? Suddenly, Bruce Wayne's back on the scene, kind of thing, and so is Batman at the same time. Like, there's all these awkward choices. Like, and I agree. I think Anne Hathaway was very blah in this movie. But I always thought that there are moments where I think this movie shines, though, and that would be the opening sequence, the plane sequence. The plane sequence is fucking phenomenal. The best part in the whole movie, in my opinion. And that the next best part is followed by probably the chase scene with the bat cycle and him getting cornered, and then him getting it to the bat wing, and they think he's caught. Then they think he's cornered again, and then he flies out on the bat wing. That's pretty dope. And then I'd say the other scenes in it. That is like the stock market exchange scene. It starts there. Yeah. And then I also don't mind the blowing up of the stadium by Bane. I think that's a really cool scene too. But apart from that, I think that this movie's pretty boring as all fucking get out.
I think the way Bane went out and that entire end fight was a little lackluster as well. Like this entire movie, including the fight where he beats the living crap out of Batman, Bane's like this unstoppable force, and then suddenly Batman's one-upping him. It's like, what's different here?
I also don't know how the whole police force is buried under the ground for this long, and they all come out and they're all like clean shaven, none with long hair or anything. Isn't it like, how long is it that they're buried underground?
A decent amount of time. And how long? That's a good point. How long was Christian Bale in the hole for? Because he grows like a full-on beard and mustache. So how long had Bane taken over for?
Exactly, that's what I want to know. And also cutting off the bridges to the city, like, was another silly decision. Like, it just made no sense.
And it's America. Americans love getting involved in things. If someone did that to Gotham, America would just be like, America!
And not just that, like, all this guy wants to do is blow the city up, but yet he cuts the bridges off, puts the police underground, and, like, holds off doing this shit for ages. Like, just, what are you doing, Bane? You know what I mean? But, like, I don't know. What did you think was some parts for you that shined compared to the rest of the movie?
I'm in agreement with you. I think the best scene is the plane scene. I think it's also got some of Bane's best dialogue. I think the chase is really decent. And the fight between the first fight between Bane and Batman and the scene leading up where they're going through the tunnels, I thought was pretty cool. Like I like how the dude shooting down the tunnel and you see Batman getting closer and the gun flashes. I think it was nicely shot. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. But overall, I would say that this is a really big letdown in the Dark Knight trilogy. I really think that this should not have been the last. This should not have been the way that Christopher Nolan let this series go out, in my opinion. I believe that, I know he wanted to do a trilogy and move on to something else, but I would have much rather him say, like, we're doing a fourth one and I want redemption kind of thing, because I almost feel like I don't know what he was going for with this movie compared to the other two, because it felt like a Nolan Batman movie, as I said, but Nolan was not in charge. That's the only way I can put it. I don't know if you could put it a better way or not.
You could kind of parallel it in some ways to Batman Forever and Tim Burton. How it's like it felt kind of Tim Burton-y, but it really didn't at the same time.
Agreed.
Whether that was good or bad, irrelevant. But I mean, like the same sort of thing. It's like it felt like a Nolan movie, but in someone else's shoebox kind of thing. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, we'll get to it later with our rankings, obviously, but I did find this one a little bit tougher to work out where I was going to put it in the ranking. I messaged you and asked where you're putting it in the ranking so I could get the screen ready for our episode. And when you said where you put it, I was like, oh, well, okay. I don't think that's a wrong decision at all or anything, like, because, you know, like it's not a great movie. We'll get into that where you put it and stuff. But I had a hard time ranking this movie because while I don't like this movie that much, and while it was a chore to get through again, and I probably won't watch it for a very long time now that I watched it again, I still don't hate it, and I still don't think it is a bad movie, and I don't think it's even a bad Batman movie. I just don't think after the highs we had with Batman Begins and The Dark Knight being so fucking fantastic, I just think that this was a big letdown, which is what made it seem like a worse movie than it actually is. You know, yeah. I don't know if you agree with that as well.
I think, yeah, that's a fairly fair statement to make about it.
I think if Bane had more parts in it, like the Joker did, where Bane wanted to tank the stock market for some reason or take the stock market, and then his next move was something on the same level as that or better, or none of this getting to this whole blowing up the city, stealing the thing from Wayne Enterprises, like the nuclear device from Wayne Enterprises and all that sort of thing. I think if he had more smaller motive, like things that he was doing to cause drama in the city, like blowing up the stadium was a cool thing. If he just kept doing that and there was no like big build up to this like nuclear bomb that and all this, I think it would have been a lot more fun and better to watch, because I just think that overall arching story of that, and also the pit to the side of it being a second sort of story, and then finding out it wasn't Bane that got out of the pit, it was Talia and all this stuff. And like, I think that it's just, I think there was so much that they wanted to wrap up into this movie, where it would have been either better to just change the story and make it better, make it less cumbersome, or B, make it The Dark Knight Rises Part 1 and then make a Part 2, so that you had more time to get into these plots rather than stuffing it all together into 2 hours and 50 minutes and making the movie seem plotty and long and weirdly paced and boring at parts and fun in other parts. I think there were so many ways that this movie could have been done a lot better. And while it is, as I said, not a bad movie, it just doesn't hit like the other two did previously. What do you think about it maybe being in 2 parts rather than 1, or them doing sort of a simpler branching storyline?
I think my first preference would probably to be to simplify it a little more, but it could have also worked in 2 parts. And it could have been actually pretty interesting in 2 parts. Some of the things you could have put in there, like you could have even seen some more of Scarecrow in it. Like if you see Broken, where the stadium gets blown up, Batman's in the hole, is where the first movie ends, which I think really felt like if it was 2 parts, that's where it would kind of hit that point. Fleshing out and you could even sneakily put other rogue characters in there from Batman's Rogues Gallery for the second part. I think
that it could have been cool if at the end, like if we got it to Part 2, say, what you just said is where it should end, with the Scarecrow with doing like trials and all that in the the courthouse and the football stadium being blown up and all those things. If it ended where around that sort of area, you know what I mean, where Gotham's in peril, Bruce Wayne's in the hole, you know what I mean? And you're not sure what's going to happen. I would think it would have been really cool to come back to it, Part 2, and not just having a little bit of time pass, but having like 6 months pass in time and seeing the city overrun by like gangs, kind of like, running the streets, and like people were afraid to leave their houses after a certain time of night and all that sort of thing. And just the whole city just being like fear struck, you know what I mean? And having more of the villains from previous movies or not in previous movies make a cameo or come back, and maybe even they are sick of Bane. And, you could have done so much things in this that were like, let's make this movie be bigger and better but make it in a simpler way over 2 parts and have it just breathe a little more. And I think like adding in a few more characters and a few more things in the second part where it feels like a finale, you know what I mean? Because as you said, the fight at the end felt very, very meh. And I think that for the Dark Knight trilogy to kind of end on a meh is not the way to do it. I don't know. So.
And another interesting thought I was having as well, if Heath Ledger hadn't died, do you think the movie would have played out this way? And do you think the Joker would have had a role in it?
If Heath Ledger hadn't died, I believe Heath Ledger would have been back. And I believe that I would have thought that, I don't know if he would have been the main villain again. I believe he would have been a very integral part. And I also believe that that's maybe why we got a subpar movie compared to the other 2. I believe that Christopher Nolan had a firm vision of where the movie was going to go, the next one, when Heath Ledger was a part of it. And then when Heath Ledger died, I think Christopher Nolan scrambled with the story and made what he could out of missing the integral parts, I guess, that he was looking at with the Joker. But that's just me speculating. I have no idea. Maybe this was his idea the entire time. But I feel it would have been very silly to not bring Joker back when he was just so loved and everything from the previous movie, people would be like, "What? No Joker? What do you mean? Heath Ledger wants to do it, or whatever." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't know. I believe that this movie could have been a lot different had Heath Ledger, been alive still. I believe that for sure. Also, I want to hear what you think about the Nightwing tease at the end. Do you believe that that was a cool tease, or do you believe that that should have led us to believe that we were going to get a next movie with the Nightwing sort of thing? Or would you prefer that to happen a lot earlier in the movie and we actually have Nightwing become a part of this movie towards the end?
I think it would have been nicer to scrap Anne Hathaway Catwoman and have Nightwing as the kind of the other introduced, well, in this case, good guy, rather than having kind of anti-hero Catwoman in there. Like she wasn't necessary,
No,
and she wasn't good.
no.
And it was weird though, because it was clear that he wasn't going to do another movie, or so it seemed. But there's so many lead-ins there, like that Nightwing. But it's like, why did he lead to that, knowing this is the third part of a trilogy and that's it? It's like, it feels like he wanted more but didn't.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've noticed that even on Batman v Superman and things like that, Justice League, like it says co-producer Christopher Nolan throughout all those movies. That there's no way he was an integral part to any of those movies, because they just don't feel like Christopher Nolan movies. And that's what I kind of feel with this movie, is that it kind of belongs when the DCEU started. It kind of feels like it should fit in that space more than the Christopher Nolan space. As I said, I feel like this was a co-produced Christopher Nolan movie and not directed by him at all. I just feel like his heart wasn't in this one compared to the other two. Or, as I said, I just feel like he had too many ideas and stuffed them into one movie and tried to make it work the best he can. And whether people think that worked or they don't think it worked is a whole nother story, I guess. People have to remember when they're watching our reviews and what our rankings are and stuff. It's very subjective. We're all different. We're all going to have a different opinion on what these movies do for us. I mean, the IMDb rating speaks for itself right here, with being an 8.4 out of 10. You know, that's a really high rating, you know. I mean, we're looking at 462,392 votes as a 10 out of 10. Then we're looking at 452,630 as 9. And then when we get down to like the 2s and the 3s, we're looking at 7,542 and 5,612. And if you want to look in the middle of the spectrum, let's say around the 6 mark, you're looking at 70,781. So, like, you're looking at a giant spectrum of people, like over hundreds of thousands, compared to the middle range of who liked this movie a lot. Like, consider it a fantastic movie. And I would have to probably, at the end of the day, put this movie I'd put it at a 6, maybe out of 10. We do out of a 5 scale, me and Alannis on our show. So that would put this right at around about a 3 for me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is there anything else you wanted to talk about with this? Was there any parts in it that you really hated? Was there anything else that you really wanted to say that you feel about the movie? Because I've got a couple of little other things to say, and yeah.
I think the tunnel scene dragged a bit. It could have been shorter. And it also, it lost me in, like, I lost concept of time. It's like, as I said before, it's like, how much time has passed here for him to grow a beard? Because it doesn't feel like weeks. Has this been weeks? What is going on?
Yeah.
But there's just like little things that didn't really explain themselves and kind of made me go, huh?
Yeah.
Because Bane didn't do a hell of a lot in that time period.
No, he didn't. He did fuck all. He did fuck all.
Yeah, it felt like almost like a pocket of time in different places. Like, it was only a few days in Gotham, but it was weeks in wherever the prison was. It was.
And how did you feel about Joseph Gordon-Levitt in this movie?
The what, sorry?
Joseph Gordon-Levitt. How did you feel about him in this movie?
I I did not mind him. He did a good job. And it's weird. So I remember when I first started, I'm like, hey, that's a kid from Third Rock from the Sun.
Yeah, no, I would have loved to see Christopher Nolan take on a Nightwing movie or something along those lines afterwards that he teased that. Like, I feel like leaving that as a tease towards the end was cool and a nod and being like, hey, all you comic book fans, I know you're going to appreciate this. But then to not follow it up with anything afterwards, you're like, but why? You know what I mean? Like,
it was interesting. So I'm not a big Batman fan, but the character's name, like obviously Nightwing's Dick Grayson in the comics.
yeah.
Is he another character from the comics, or is he just dude made up for the movies? So I don't know Batman well enough. I'm like, I thought that was interesting as well, because it's almost like he has a transposed Dick Grayson story.
So his name is Blake. His name is Blake in it. Yeah. John Blake. And it doesn't tell us anything about John Blake.
He definitely doesn't look like a John Blake.
No, he doesn't. He does not at all.
Like John Blake, you think of someone looking like John Cena or something, like square jaw, all American.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, I mean, what would you give it out of a 5, Alan?
I'd probably give it 2.5 to 3. Like it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. It had some good moments, but overall, it's hard to watch in one sitting. And even watching it broken up, I'm like, I could just keep thinking, man, I'm glad I didn't watch 2 hours and 45 minutes of this in one sitting. I don't think I would have lost attention. I would have gone, what's over here?
Yeah. Now, well, that's what I found hard with it, man, was when I first went and saw it at the cinemas, I had to piss like the entire movie, man. And I was like sitting there going, come on. You know what I mean? I was like, when I was finished, I was like, excuse me, like trying to get past it. So, yeah, no, I totally get where you're coming from with that. So 2.5 out of 3, 2.5 out of 5, 3 out of 5. That I'm sitting at about a 3. So with that, before we get into our rankings, we're going to go into the official Loud Media ranked and reviewed trivia. I'm a fucking idiot. All right. Cool. Trivia. This is some trivia about the movie. Let's get straight into it. About a year before this movie's release, writer, producer, and director Christopher Nolan mentioned he's considering using a mixture of CGI and deleted scenes from The Dark Knight to have the Joker appear briefly. He ultimately decided it was disrespectful to Heath Ledger. Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
All right. This is what we were talking about the other day. The other review, The Dark Knight, where writer, producer, and director Christopher Nolan said that the movie seems deal with pain for Batman Begins. It was fear. While this movie deals with pain, Batman Begins, it was fear, and The Dark Knight dealt with chaos. Tom Hardy, standing at 5'9", had to wear 3-inch lifts to make his character Bane appear as tall or taller than co-stars Christian Bale, Morgan Freeman, Sir Michael Caine. Tom Hardy accepted the role of Bane without reading the script. He was verbally told that he would have unprecedented access to extensive stunt training and equipment that he could enjoy knocking around. According to the producers, the line, "That's a lovely, lovely voice," was improvised by Tom Hardy. Bane's theme is a chant which features the term Deshi Basara, which is Moroccan for the word rise. And we'll do 2 more. In the football stadium sequence, the cast and extras all were wearing heavy winter clothing, though the scenes were shot during a massive heat wave across the East Coast during the summer of 2011. And we will go 1 more. This is the first Batman movie by Christopher Nolan that did not get an Academy Award nomination, and the third Batman movie after Batman: Mask of Phantasm and Batman and Robin, which did not receive a single nomination. After hearing that, maybe we should chuck in Mask of Phantasm, but do it just when we can fit it in with the time we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, you down for that?
I definitely am.
That's considered canonly a Batman movie. I think we should do it. We are going to get around to doing the 1966 Batman, but that's coming when we can be bothered, because that's going to be something I don't really want to sit through very much. So with that, let's get into ranking.
Dun dun dun. What have I done?
All right. So, if you haven't watched last week's episode, Alan shook us all. Shook us to the core. And he made the anger inside me do a Bane. It said, "My anger rises." So, this is last week's results. My rankings were number 1, The Dark Knight. Number 2, Batman Begins. Number 3, Batman Forever. Number 4, Batman from 1989. Number 5, The Batman. Number 6, Batman Returns. Number 7, Batman and Robin. Alannis' ranking was number 1, Batman Forever. Number 2, Batman Returns. Number 3, The Dark Knight. Number 4, Batman Begins. Number 5, Batman and Robin. Number 6, Batman from 1989. And number 7, the Batman from 2022. Now, you guys might have to message Alannis and ask him why the fuck he would put the best Batman movie at number 3. Was it 3?
Yes.
Terrible decision. But that's what this whole show's about, you know. If we all had the same ranking every time, the show wouldn't be as fun. So, with that, it is time to bring on this week's result. Here is our current brand new ranking. What do you think, Alannis, staring at where I'm putting it all?
Yeah.
So, mine is number 1, The Dark Knight. Number 2, Batman Begins. Number 3, Batman Forever. Number 4, Batman 1989. Number 5, The Batman 2022. Number 6, Dark Knight Rises. Number 7, Batman Returns. And number 8, Batman and Robin. And Alannis's goes like this. Number 1, Batman Forever. Number 2, Batman Returns. Number 3, The Dark Knight. Number 4, Batman Begins. Number 5, Batman and Robin. Number 6, Batman 1989. Number 7, The Batman from 2022. And number 8, The Dark Knight Rises. So you officially put this bad boy last on the menu.
Yeah, it's least entertaining, I think, for me. And the most chore-like, the most... I didn't have a bad time, but I also felt like I was just going through the motions.
I didn't have a bad time, but I got to admit, I didn't have a good time either, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I had a time.
Yeah. So that was interesting. That was a lot of fun. So, with that, as we said, we have 2 movies left, but we've added another one, as you just heard. We have 3 movies left in this Batman Ranked and Reviewed series. But unfortunately, we only have time, I'm thinking, to fit in the Lego Batman movie, which we are going to do as of next week. Lego Batman movie will come in for Ranked and Reviewed. Then we will be doing Batman vs. Superman. And if we can fit it in around that time, we will do Mask of Phantasm. We are also... this week, bringing you an extra episode of Ranked and Reviewed for our Beavis and Butthead Do America review, so we can finish ranking and reviewing the Beavis and Butthead movies, including the new one, which we did last week, Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe. I'm excited to do that one as well, because I haven't watched it yet, and I'm looking forward to watching it. Have you started watching it yet, Alan? Do America?
I have not, no.
No? And we are going to be, if you haven't seen already, we are going to be starting our Halloween ranked and reviewed series on July 20th. So we are coming up to that very quickly. Wednesday, July 20th, you will have your review for Halloween #1, John Carpenter's Halloween. What are you feeling about that series, Alan?
I'm excited and also upset at different points of the series. There's some that I'm like, I don't want to.
I'm telling you, man, you'll have a better time with H2O than you remember.
Yeah.
Resurrection, though. I can't promise you anything with Resurrection. So, with that is this week's episode of Ranked and Reviewed. And as always, I am your host, Tomye West. Joining me as always is my co-host, Alannis Maximus. If you haven't subscribed, liked, or shared, please do. And please leave a comment, because leaving a comment makes you feel good, which makes us feel good. That's the deal, isn't it right, Alan?
I like to feel good.
The fire rises when I feel good. And we will see you next week with our review of the Lego Batman movie. Are you looking forward to that one too, Al?
I am. I have not seen it, but I want to.
What?
Yeah, for real.
You will love
It's
it.
one of those movies that I want to see this movie.
It's fucking awesome. I can't wait till you see it. Anyways, Alan, when does this fucking episode end?
No.